You've been making these requests to this like nebulous JSON server that we've had you run in the background, right? We made you type some sort of command like JSON-server, okay, JSON.server, and then there's like -- watch. You're gonna watch this particular DB JSON file. So that's not really like a backend as much as it's just like a local file that we're running like a fake local server so that we can make requests to it. The idea is that we actually want to build our own server, but you already know how to do this. What you want to do is you want to create something that looks like this. So you have this reddit.com users.json. So this is actually giving me like JSON data. I'm just going to keep saying JSON. JSON Derulo. If this looks like you can read it, congratulations, you're a parser. I, however, am not. So in order to make code like this more readable, there's a lot of Chrome extensions or browser extensions that can make this like pretty printed for you. So I personally use something called JSON Formatter. There's like JSON Viewer. It doesn't really matter, but the idea is this is what it looks like raw, and then if you hit parsed, oh my goodness, and it's color coded, oh, it's sweet. So I can actually kind of see that if I make a fetch to this particular URL, I should actually wind up seeing this data. So the idea here is that I can even just do a fetch. I can go straight to this URL. All right, and do I need to specify the method if it's a get? No. That's right, it's default. Very good. And then what do I get back? I get this promise back. It's resolved. A-okay. So if I wanted to take a look at it, all right, I can do .then. I could take the response that I get. Oops. I need a callback, right? I can take the response that I get, and then I can simply run return response, and I'm going to parse that JSON. And then, as a dirtbag, I'm going to then do something else. Is this like readable for you guys? Yeah? Ridiculous. You guys are so much better than me. I can't read this, so I'm going to do this instead. Bloop, bloop, right? And then, remember, this returns the response. So in this function, what should I receive? Right, I'm going to receive the return value of this previous promise, which is like this parse JSON. So I'm looking over here, and I could see it should be some sort of like object that's holding 2 key values. The second key data is another large object that holds 3 key values, and this third key value is children, which holds an array of more objects. Okay? So let's see. This looks like users to me, all right, based on this data. Yeah?
So .json is doing it with your Chrome extension just did when you had them parts?
Not exactly. When I had raw, it was already there. But when I clicked parse, it just pretty printed it for me, so that it added like the line breaks and it did some syntax, like color highlighting for me, so it's more human readable. The data is exactly the same. Like if I wanted to, I could see kind, which points to listing. I could see data, which points to that object I was talking about with the 3 key values, which is in fact an array of all these objects.
So when you say that the .json is parsing the data, what is that?
This right here is JSON data. And I could tell because I've asked it to give me users.json. All right? And this will make more sense once I get to the Rails part. All right? So if I see these users here, I can simply, let me just console log the users. Now it looks fine. That didn't look right. Oh no, I'm in JavaScript hell. Oh. Okay. Okay. Did I not just not close it? Oh, I got interrupted in the middle of writing this function. No, you're good, you're good, you're good. Oh, the first then. I done goofed. So then this should be fine, right? Cool. So actually I get that promise back, and then did you see like it took like this like half second before the next line came in? And then look what I got here. Data kind, okay. And then I see data, and I open it, mod hash dist children, and that is an array of 25 objects. So this fetch is literally just making this network request for me. Any questions on like visualizing like the fetch? It should be good now, right? Kind of like the idea behind it. Okay, cool. So what we want to do is we want to be able to build something like this. So, okay, what kind of data would you all like? No, that's a Tashawn thing. I don't touch the Tashawn TM wrappers move. That's exclusive property. Pokemon? I mean, you guys do Pokemon a lot. Okay, I'm going to take you to Flavortown because I'm always hungry, so I'm just going to take you to Flavortown. Let's do this. Let's do Rails, right? You guys are going to forget a lot of the syntax. I'm going to like bring it back, right? How do you make a brand new Rails app? You Rails generate a brand new app? Okay. Yeah, so it's Rails new, right? Don't worry, the syntax like comes back slowly. And then how would you build this app? What would you want? Right, Flavortown. So Flavortown. Cool. So bloop. I'm just gonna let that Bad Johnson fly. Hopefully, oh no, the gems. Oh, thank God I have them installed already. Cool. So I can just CD right into Flavortown, and now I should start doing this G action, right? So for me, I don't think that have you guys seen Scaffold yet? Correct. All right, good. That's the right answer. We tell you not to use, we don't yell at you. We tell you very gently, very politely to not use that syntax because it's not going to help you. So let's actually see it for a second, right? So I can Rails generate and I can scaffold the entire application. So what sort of a model would you like in Flavortown? I think Flavortown's more like food. So like nachos, burgers, beverages. Nugs? Oh yes. Oh my God. Cheese fries? Let's just go with fries in general, and then we can just like add a boolean for cheese, right? So if I just Rails G scaffold fries, right? What are the attributes of fries? So we have cheese as a boolean. Huh? They should always be crisp. Otherwise, just throw them away. My God. Ugh. Huh? Let's not use type. Type is like a reserve keyword, and that can kind of mess that up. So let's just put style, and that'll just be a string. If it's a string, do I need to sort of like put this like string in here? No, it's by default, right? So I'm just gonna let that fly. Bloop. Too late. Great. So, oh my goodness, look at this. The model name fries was not recognized using the singular fry instead. Bless up Lord Rails. Right. Let's actually take a look to see what that built for us. Oh my goodness. Before I kind of reveal that, let's actually start the server. Oh my God. Wait, hold on. Rails. I need to migrate. Unless that did that for me. Nope, it didn't. My goodness. All right, let's start that server. Cool. So it says that my server is running on localhost 3000. Good deal. So if I go to went to Rails localhost 3000, just localhost 3000. Yay, I'm on Rails. So if I have this like fries like model, right? What can I expect are the RESTful routes that are there? Right? So I should see fries. Interesting. Okay. Whoa, and it's there. And I can make a brand new fry. So let's do that. Great. Cheese, yes or no? Yes. Okay, what's the style? Curly? Sure. If I create the fry, wow, fry was successfully created. Cheese, true. Curly, I can edit it or I can go back to index. Whoa. Let's make another one. Cheese, yes or no? We should be fair to everyone, right? There should be some no cheese options. So which one is this one? The cheesy fries without cheese? You're a tricky class. Okay, cool. If I go back, I see that now I have these two cheeses, right? The idea here is that before with this Reddit, I had all of this like JSON data. But here, what do I have? I have sort of like these objects, right? But they're being rendered on the page. So that really what's happening, if we look into the code, this is really like an ERB template that's being yielded and rendered inside that application template block. Do you remember this? Kind of, barely, a little bit. Okay. So this really is sending me back like HTML. That's really what I'm getting. I'm getting an HTML file back so that the browser, when it gets HTML, it knows what to do with it. And then it uses that DOM, the model, and then it builds the tree, and then it builds my website, right? So there's some sort of, like maybe like a P tag in here. This looks like an H1. It knows what to do with the HTML. So if I actually hit enter, I actually get back that HTML. But what if I wanted this data in this language agnostic version, and I can already tell that I don't always need HTML. Sometimes I just want JSON. Let me take a wild guess here. Wow, let's bless up to Lord Rails. Lord Rails, plus, right? Is this the type of data that you feel like you can kind of work with? Now, with this data, on any website, could you slap it on the DOM?
Yeah.
That's really about it. So Rails is actually super powerful. So let's actually see what that kind of built. The idea here is if we go into app, right, we can go into views. Let's go into layouts. This is that yield block I was talking about. And anything that you put inside, like let's say index, it's going to take this whole thing. Oh, wow, I guessed correctly. This is a H1. Huh, cool. It's going to yield it inside this block, and it's going to send that HTML back. Right? Let's take a look at the controller. Look, the fries controller. Look at this. I can do a get to /fries, or I can do a get to /fries.json. So we can already tell if you use scaffold because it will build a lot of stuff for you. And I'm like, oh, you built this yourself? You're like, yep. I'm like, okay. The idea is that you need to understand every single part. So if you just use scaffold the entire time you're learning, you're like, oh, why am I learning this? I could just use scaffold. But scaffold builds too much for you. And in production, it's too bloated. And so realistically, if you use scaffold, you'll never use it in production. So we're trying to avoid showing you that. But scaffold's really good because you can build a back end up very quickly. Something that you don't really care about, but you want to see and test things. This is very useful when you're interviewing. A lot of times they're going to be like, hey, here is some data from our server. Please build a back end. But more importantly, you're interviewing for a front end position. So just build a very quick back end, and then I need you to build a cool user interface with this data. You don't want to spend hours building this back end. You just want to take the data, scaffold it, so then now you can fetch the data on the front end and build that fast, beautiful front end experience for your interview. And so that's kind of like one of the main purposes of scaffold. Cool? All right, so let's actually take a look at what's going on here, right? There's this respond to method, and that's going to do it's going to take in a format. So I can either respond to the format with HTML or with JSON. So the idea here is like, look at this. In my index, I see @fries equals fry.all. So there's a couple things I can do, right? So the first thing we know is inside each of these controller actions, the first thing is we need to interact with the model. And here we are interacting with the model right here in the database with the fry.all. Do you remember back in mod 1, like what's actually happening here? It's running that select star from table fries. It's grabbing everything with the fries, and then it's creating these Ruby instances, and then it's returning it to you. And then you're just saving it an instance variable so you have access to it inside the view. So mods 1 and 2 are really kind of collapsing in here, and then ultimately being able to bring you to now mod 3. Right? So the second thing is what? You interact with the model, and then yes, you're rendering, but ultimately you're sending a response back to the user. You interact with the model, and you send a response. That's that request-response cycle. So what is the response normally? Right here, implicitly, you'll see a render and then index. This render index is really just sending back this index.html.erb file. That's what it's doing as a response. But what if we instead didn't want to do that, but we wanted to render JSON. We can render JSON just like this and then pass it fries. So now if someone goes to the index, they're going to be getting all the fries in this JSON format. And that's basically what this looks like. And so you could use Rails just to set up your back end and not necessarily use any of the front end. So who here liked Form 4, collection select, form tags? You like that? Okay, they're kind of tricky. I personally like them, but a lot of students are like, collection select was rough. Cool? So knowing what we know, do you need that form tag anymore? Will you actually need any of these? Well, let's think about it, right? Like, this sort of exists. So what if, right? Let's take a look at our folder structure here. Oop, I went to Nacho Town the other day. All right, so the idea is I had this flavor town. I can also make a brand new directory called flavor town front end. So far, so good. So now I see this flavor town backend, which I probably should have named it backend, and this flavor town front end. So if I cd into flavor town front end, what's in it? Nothing, right? Of course, like there's nothing in there, but we can make some stuff. So let's simply just make a index.html. If you're looking for why it's called index, that's just like the default name for like the landing page. So you have index.html, and then you have index.js. So let me just open up that file. Cool. And so in my index.html, I have nothing. And that's okay. I can just go bloop, bloop, bloop. Wow, shortcuts. So do I have access to my JavaScript right now? No, what do I need? I need that script tag. And if I put it in the head, right, what winds up happening to my HTML? I don't really have access to it necessarily, right? So I can tell it the source, which is what? Index.js, right? It's like a local file in the same folder, so I don't have to put like .. or / or any of that stuff. And then I want to make sure that I have access to all of it. And I'm sure all of you read that article that I sent out, and you're all like squared up on like async or defer or DOM content loaded. So I'm just going to put defer here so I have access to the rest of the HTML. Cool. Okay, let's do this. If I had a button, okay, and it said, click me for data, okay, what would I need to do in my index.js? I would grab the button, add an event listener on it, and on that event listener, I would send what? A fetch request. So here, we kind of did that already, right? Inside of the Reddit, we send that fetch. So now in my front end, I can do basically the exact same thing, except I'm not going to the Reddit. I'm just going to hit this server. So let me actually start the server. That would have been embarrassing, right? So cd, okay, I think it's Flatiron School. You guys are 0513, and this is 19. And then it was Flavortown. Noise. Oh, just kidding. I don't have, what the? Oh. Sorry, I'm like stuck on Ruby 2.3.3. I'm like a clown. I should probably switch to the default over there. Boop, boop, boop. Bam. Nice. All right, so now the server's like up and running. It's like live. So what should I see here, right? Are these going to be users now? They're going to be like fry objects. Cool. So if I just simply do fry objects. So the promise, and then it paused for like a quarter of a second, and then you saw this load because, remember, it waited till the call stack was clear, retrieved the data, and then it console logged. And there's the data right there. So notice how, I see your question, notice how the front end and the back end are in completely separate folders. So this is what it means by full stack. I can have someone on my front end team working completely on just the front end, right? I'm gonna make a fetch request and I'm gonna slap it on the DOM. And then the back end team is really what builds out all that back end logic. All of the routes, all of the controllers, all of the controller actions, the methods in there, doing the flash, doing the errors, doing the validations. That's the back end team. And now you're starting to see that separation, right? The front end team doesn't necessarily have to interact with the back, but it's cool because you know both now. And so you're really like a legit like front end and back end developer. So that's kind of like that full stack where you can build out the back end completely on your own, and you can even build out the front end, because the front end really is just making requests to the back end and then just slapping it onto the DOM. Cool? Any questions so far? Yeah.
So you just all you did for that one, you just typed in .json and it changed like the format.
Huh?
For the actual URL, all you did to change the format was type not an actual URL.
Oh, yeah, I just put .json.
So then why did you need to change in Adam? You did the index. Like you showed that you could also render it there. How wasn't it?
What?
Another you got.
That makes sense. You go to /fries and goes to JSON.
Yeah, /fries will give me the HTML, but /fries.json will give me the JSON.
I'm saying when you were rendering JSON at fries.
Yeah.
So that means now if I go to fries 3000 /fries, it's automatically just gonna.
Yeah, this should just force the render of JSON.
Now it's always gonna just come.
Yeah. So again, we don't really want to use scaffold, so let's actually build out our own application. So, what do you guys want to build, or do you actually want to do you guys want to do Flavor Town?
And then slang generator. What name is that? Dictionary, I don't know.
You have no idea how fun that would be for me,
No, it'd be great.
an Evans Wang slang generator, but I would also be fired. So let's stay to Flavor Town. Let's go to Flavor Town. All right. So let's just make another app, right? Let's make another backend, right? And so we have Rails new. We can do Flavor Town backend. And now, remember we talked about that form 4? Notice how in the front end application, right, I have a button that if I click this button, it's going to send that fetch with a front end JavaScript. So I don't really need the action view library from Rails, which was the form 4, right? The link to, like I don't need any of the Rails front end because I have my JavaScript, HTML, CSS front end completely separately. That's just going to make the calls to my Rails backend. So
when you're doing this, you keep that in completely different like apps. It's not even like,
bingo.
So it's okay. So
Yes.
it's totally separate. And then I'm kind of confusing myself with this question. But
Please, yeah. Hopefully I can shed some light.
Like if you're working completely separately like that, assuming that everyone's like pretty continuously pushing up to GitHub,
Mhm.
and then so how does like the API requests and stuff like that from the front end to the back end, how does like GitHub interact with all of that?
So GitHub is just a storage for your code.
Right.
So you're not necessarily asking GitHub to interact with it directly. It's just a place to store your code and do version controlling. Well, Git's version control, but GitHub is just saving your code in a web application.
So the front end, whenever they would request information from the back end team to the API to fetch request, it's just whatever is the most updated version.
We're going to talk about versioning right now, but very good. So the idea here is that we don't really want all of the bloat that could potentially come with Scaffold or the regular Rails app. So in order to get rid of like some of the extra stuff, we could tell it, hey, I'm just going to use this Rails as an API. So you push this -API flag. And so you'll actually see it build everything, and then very quickly it will remove a lot of things for you. So this becomes a lot leaner because you're just using the back end for Rails. Cool? So if I were to do that, I can cd into Flavortown backend. Cool. So let's go into it. If I go into the backend here, notice the first thing I'll see is inside my app, in my controllers, I'm pulling from Action Controller API versus action controller base. So it's just pulling in different things. So I think somebody asked, maybe not this class, but like the namespacing, why that's important, because you want to be pulling from different things at different times. So the other thing is that we can take a look at is in the Flavortown backend, just with the API flag. If we take a look at views and layouts, notice it doesn't have that application layout anymore because we're never going to be building these view folders and yielding them into that application template because I'm expecting a separate front end. So it's like saving me some space and some files and some unnecessary things. Cool? So now the idea here is I actually want to build some sort of versioning control system where I want to like build this out. So if I were to say build a controller to handle all of my actions, I would now Rails G. And if I just wanted a controller, what would I use? All right, just controller. Super easy, right? And let's build beverages, just drinks. So controller, singular or plural? Sure? Wow, that was confident. Yes, it's plural, right? Cool. Boop. There's like other flags that you could put on there. Like you can literally tell it right as you build that to one, not create the test framework, and also build like the new index show create actions, but we're not going to get to that. We're just going to do this. So now I have this drinks controller, but if I wanted some sort of versioning, when I do my controller, I can tell it that it's an API and that this currently is version 1. So if I build this, it's going to build another controller for me and build that subfolder. So now my Rails has an API folder, version 1 with the drinks controller in here. And notice how it builds this. I'm like, okay, cool. So what's the first thing we typically build inside of this? What do we build? We build index, right? So def index. And in the same way, we need to interact with the model. And then we need to send a response. So what is the model here that we're interacting with? All right, so drink.all, right? Pretty standard. And then what is the response now? If we're just using this API flag, we're going to render, is it index.html? No, we're going to tell it, we're going to send back JSON. And then we're going to tell it to send back the drinks. Ruby has, well, Rails actually with all its gems, has some sort of method that you can do drinks, and then you can do like to JSON. And this actually converts all of those objects into a JSON stringified object. So that's kind of what this is doing here. The next thing that we actually should probably be sending back is letting the user know if this was good. So you can tell them a quick status of 200, which is okay, or you can just straight up go, okay. If you want to look at what all of these are, you could just, I'll probably send out a link later. It's like, hey, what are the Rails status codes? Right? Great. So let's like test through this. Can I test this right now? Right, I don't even have the drink model, right? So I need to make that. So I can do Rails G model. The drink or drinks? All right, the model singular. Drank. That's not gonna work because Rails will look for a drinks controller. I should have made drinks. I done goofed. All right. So what are the attributes of this drink? Is it purple enough?
No, is it purple or not?
Purple drank? Great. Purple Boolean. Anything else? No, it's purple or it's not. All right. This is the new age. All right. So let's just put fizzy and golly. More Booleans? Let's get either a number or a string in there. Fine. The level of fizziness, right? On a scale of like 10 to 100, because like I see all these like LaCroix and bubbly and like Spindrift. Like nobody drinks regular water anymore. It's weird. All right, cool. So now I have this model, right? I need to migrate. Rails db migrate. Oop. Now I should be able to test. So let me go test. I can jump into my console. and then I can take like a drink. Does that exist? I can do drink.all, and I can even do drink.create. So what were my attributes again? Great. Is this drink purple? Eat, right? So Booleans are interesting because you can either put true, false, or you can just do 1 or 0. Wow, that's just true. All right, and what was it? Fizzy? All right, is this purple drink fizzy?
37.
Okay, -1. Right, very good. Great, it totally exists. Good to go. So let's start this Rails server. Row. Have you seen this? What seems to be the issue? Did I not bundle? Oh, I see. The address is already in use, so my other Rails server is running, which was this one. Let's get out of here. Cool. Look at this mastery of error messages. Cool. I was like about to dive into Spring. Like, what's wrong with my config? I was like, oof. No big deal. Great. So I should be able to go to some sort of route of this drinks index and then see this index, right? What route should I go to? Localhost 3000 / Okay, and that's going to give me what? It's going to give me an error because what's up with that route? It doesn't exist yet, right? So what do I want to do? Okay, I'm going to make a route for get to / dranks, right? Because remember, I can do custom routes if I want to, as long as I point it to the correct controller action. So that's going to point to what?
Drink. Hashtag.
Drinks controller? The drinks controller? Remember, the drinks controller is here, but I want it to go bloop, here. So I need something like, I need to go into the API, version 1, drinks. And then there's a method in there called index. Actually, I'm not 100% sure that I usually do the namespacing. So localhost 3000 / dranks, oops, sorry, API / v1 / dranks. Oh yeah, the syntax is on this is buggy. Oh yeah, there's a comma here. Thank you. Look at this network request. Who knows how long it will take? Nobody knows. Could take a while, could take 2 seconds. Okay, no route matches get to / API v1 dranks, which makes sense because that's actually the controller. The route is just get dranks. Can get tricky here. Have no fear. Cool. So the idea here is that I'm literally doing a get to whatever route I want, and then I'm pointing it to this particular controller, hitting this particular controller action. So if I look back at my drinks controller, I just hit index. So you can start to see that this becomes a lot more complicated, where if I want to get to drinks specific, right, then it would probably be drinks to this like ID, something like that. It gets really dicey. But I don't want to put API v1 all the time. I know that I'm going to prepend it with this API v1 every single time. So Rails routes, there's something called namespacing. And if you ever forget how to write the syntax for it, you can just be right in the middle of lecture and then tell the students that you forgot, and then you can tell them how to do the namespacing by looking it up cleverly. And they'll never know. So there's this namespacing keyword here, right? So if I put namespace admin and then I put resources articles, notice how it'll prepend all of my controller actions with admin. So I no longer need to write API v1, I could just namespace that API. So, like a good boy, I'm just gonna do this, bloop. Right? I'm gonna go bloop. So is it namespace admin, or is it namespace API? Okay. Let's do that. What about this v1? v1, that do, and then I got to end. Bloop, bloop. And is it resources articles? Drinks. Bloop. Cool. So what I can do is I can always check and test those routes to see, hey, did this actually come up the way I think it did? So I can go, I'll just leave that on. Localhost 3000 / Rails info routes. Okay? Did I not get rid of that? Oh, get out of here. Get out of here. Cool. So I see API v1 drinks exactly as I thought it would. Hitting a controller action of API v1 drinks. So far so good? Yes.
Can you do a namespace with a get? So if you want it to be drank, it's not right.
If I wanted to be, what?
Like, can you still
Yeah, if I wanted to, I can do a get right here.
Okay.
Dranky drink. See what happens. Bloop. Oops. This doesn't go anywhere. Let's make up a controller. Made up. Going to a method called also made up. Look at that. That's powerful. Look at this. We can go to dranky drank. And what would the error be though? Just out of curiosity. Just testing your Rails. Just testing your Rails. Hold on, there's a fly here. Bloop. Huh? Right, it would say like, hey, there's no controller called made up. Embarrassing. All right. So let's actually like start using all of this stuff that we just built. And that is, if I went to API v1 drinks, and that went to API v1 drinks index. Cool. What should I see? Just that JSON data. So now, let's bring this back one more time. Where would this fetch go to? Here, API v1 drinks. Whoops. Put it right there. There it is. Why does it come back as an array-like object? Yeah, it's inside the array, but why did this come back as an array? Because this .all returns an active record collection proxy, an array-like object. So what's the one we usually build after this?
Show.
Well, show action. Cool. And then what is the model and what is the response? Drank, right? Equals to. Oh my lord. Yeah. Oh, your Rails is good. Oh my god. Okay. So what's the response then? Should we just render drank.html? JSON, drank, status. Okay. I mean, this doesn't really matter, right? If I, yeah. As long as you're consistent, right? I'm trying to show you like how you can just do whatever you want in Rails, because you know it, you understand it. So how would I actually get to this? What is the route that I'm looking for here? What did resources build for me? Why one? There's only one here, right? So if I went to drinks/2, what would I get? Okay, there's no ID with drink 2. That makes sense. But if I put 1, there it is. Okay. So this one comes back as just a regular object. Why? This returns is a find. It just returns one item. Cool. So like always understand like what you're dealing with. So if I wanted to fetch this data, I'd be able to fetch it. And now, if I hosted my Rails backend, if I hosted this drinks app and I pushed it to Heroku, any one of you can hit that API and pull this drink data. And so that's how you make a separate API and then you make a separate front end. So who here has like hit like the weather API or something? Or like what APIs have you hit at all?
Google Books.
Oh, Google Books? Oh. I mean, yes. Yeah, that's great. Right? The idea is that you can hit any API you want, but now you know how to build just the API. So now your application talks to your backend, and then you can give access to anyone you want to hit that. And so let's talk about this. Ready? I'm in this localhost 3000 API, but look at the domain that I'm currently on. Right? I opened up the DevTools under localhost 3000 drinks API. So if I were to take this exact same code and I were to go to, let's do this in case, great. I'm coming from Twitter and I decide to make this request. It's weird, I straight copied and pasted it, and it says I refuse to connect because it violates some security policy, okay? And then I get this fail to fetch. It was rejected. Okay, interesting. What if I went to, I don't know, what's another cool website? It's like Reddit, Reddit's okay. Reddit. Let's just watch this video for a second. Whoa, kid's got a cannon. Oh, nah, fake news, that was staged. All right, so if I were to do that, I run into another error, and that's like access to fetch from the origin of Reddit. Notice how my dev tools are currently open on reddit.com. But it's being blocked because of something called like this CORS policy, which is bizarre, right? It says no access control allow origin, header is present. Oh my God. So CORS, right, if we actually look it up, right? CORS error, right? Origin something, blah, blah, blah. The first thing you read is CORS just stands for cross-origin resource sharing. So the idea here is right now, localhost 3000 can make requests to localhost 3000 as you saw me do right here. I'm currently on localhost 3000. I opened up the DevTools and I made a request to localhost 3000, which makes sense because what if I built this app, right? And it was like evanswang.com. Please don't go there. That website does exist. I'm a developer. So let's say I'm on evanswang.com, right? And I have my own back end, and I have my beautiful front end. It's not beautiful. But the idea here is my data, my back end, should be protected by default. I don't want, you know, Matt to be able to make a request to Evans Wang's back, okay, to my API. Sorry, I noticed how that was about to sound. I don't want Matt to make a request to my API. Thank you. That's very good. I don't want him to make a request to my API and me just straight up give him the data, right? I need to be taken out to dinner first, you know what I'm saying? But the idea here is that like my server should block that immediately because Matt.com, that origin is not registered from my backend. I haven't said that that origin is safe. And so that's how Rails automatically will protect your data. So if Matt, right, wanted to use data from my backend, then he would make a fetch request to like evanswang.com/one.json or whatever it was. And then it should block it. It's like, hey, I don't know who you are, no thanks, hard pass. But I can also open it up to everyone and just be like, hey, anyone can make a request to this. And I've therefore made my API open source. Right, so like a lot of the APIs that you kind of like heard about, like any of the New York City data is open source. So how can we do that? You have a question?
Yeah, so why is, I understand that like you wouldn't be able to like parse like Reddit's actual data or request that, why still?
That's right here. I just made a fetch request to it. It was totally cool.
I thought you said it.
Well, it's probably because Reddit has open sourced their API. Right? Versus like if I made the same request to like New York Times' like URL. it would be like, ooh, that's my news articles. Like, no thanks, right? Especially because you have to pay to subscribe to get their data.
You're saying that you were really going for local, trying to catch locals not on that site, but you changed that on the incognito.
Yeah. So like, if I was on Reddit and I try to make a request
Yeah, so
to me,
yeah.
to localhost 3000, Reddit should not be able to send that fetch request because I haven't allowed it.
Oh, you're sending it. That's
Right, because look, see, it's coming from origin reddit.com. Because I'm right now on reddit.com, and if I send a fetch from here, I'm sending it from the origin of Reddit. And I don't want that. So the idea here is that I can simply look up, oh my God, so Rails cores is the first thing you're going to look up, right? When it's like, oh man, there's this cores error. Cool. I could see this link here, which is the second link. The first one's probably fine. And you can see, oh my goodness, provide support for cross-origin resource sharing for Rack-compatible web applications, which makes sense because Rails is built on Rack. So how do I use this? Well, gem install Rack cores, or in your gem file, add Rack cores. Okay. So in my gem file, you guys seen this? Right? Like this fuzzy search. All right, if you hit Command T, you could search for all of your files inside your application. Cool. So bloop. And so it says add this gem rack cores. Ooh, there it is. Bloop. Just gonna uncomment it. So now this gem exists, and therefore I should probably what? Bundle install. Right, great. I'm gonna bundle install to make sure that that gem is installed into my package. Great. I'm gonna start the server back up. And let's take a look at the rest of this. Rails configuration. Okay. Put something like this in the code below inside config application. Okay. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Something about config middleware insert before rack cores due. Okay. So I'm going to go through my Rails folder. Inside the config, right, I'm going to see. Yep. So if I do not use the -- API, I'm going to put inside my config application this code. Right? But because I use the API flag, there's actually a separate cores file. So, oh my goodness, wow, that look the same. That looked like a Ruby. So, just gonna boop. Let me explain what this is doing here. In my Rails application, inside the core code base of it, there's like a config option, middleware, which we won't talk about today, right? This bypasses certain options. There's a module called rack cores. I'm going to allow the origins of only example.com. And what I want them to do is hit any of my resources, right? Any headers they want, and we'll talk about headers here in a little bit as we dive deeper into the fetch, and then any of these methods. So if I wanted to expose my API to anyone and everyone, I give it the asterisk flag. And that is like, hey, it's universal. Now I've just open sourced my API. Cool? Or I can give specific people access to it, right? So like mattthehammer.com, right? And this person, right, can do anything they want. Or they can only get and post. Well, you can specify additional options in here, and this is how freemium was born. So think about it like this. I can always do this, and I can say, okay, guess what? Matt the Hammer can do anything they want on my website because they're paying me, but everyone can get. But if they want to update any of the data, they got to pay me, in which case I'm going to add them to this list here, and then I'm going to give them additional privileges. That make sense? You ever like been on one of those like freemium apps? No? Wow, lucky you. You've been on a freemium app or question? Or probably both, right? Don't know freemiums? Okay. That joke didn't land well. Yes?
So when you're saying that they have an opportunity to like post an patch, like does that mean that they're actually affecting the database that you have?
That's correct.
So why would you really want to give people, like you want to give them access that they can pull it and download it. So why would you want them to be able to update the random person?
Oh, the idea here is like you're on Instagram, right? And you want to upload a photo. What kind of request is that? Is that a GET request?
Oh, seriously, okay.
Smart. Yeah? Cool. So any questions on like cores? So the idea here is that if this is fixed, be sure to restart your server when you modify this file. Great. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Restart the server. If that's true, then the idea here is that from Reddit, I should be able to run that exact same line of code and that promise resolve. Cool. Any questions on what cores is doing and why we have cores and how to get around the cores error? Who feels comfortable about cores? Okay, what does cores stand for? Help me here, oh my God. Yeah, cross-origin resource sharing. So what are your questions about cores? Yeah.
Can you give an example of say that the only one allows why does it URL?
Oh, because I have to specify the domain that it's going to come from. In the same way, the origin was reddit.com. Even if I were to go to like hot and then go to new and then it'd be like /new, the origin's always going to be just the domain. So I have to specify what domain it's going to come from. That's why you have to buy your domain name, because like anything you do from there, that's where it's like your network request will spawn from that IP address. Any questions on cores? If I can help out, clarify anything. Yeah.
We'll probably get to like validations and stuff like that, right? But like you were saying to David's question, like, oh, if you're on Instagram, like that's a post request or a patch request.
Yeah, if you're like uploading something to Instagram's database, you'll essentially, when you click that upload, like, hey, this is a nice photo, I'm just chilling on the beach, everyone else has FOMO, and I send that request, that should be a post request.
But then what I mean is that like you could post that photo and then delete your own, delete other.
Correct.
And
that's going to be more like route protection and back-end logic, as you've seen in Mod 2, where if you're currently signed in and you're the current user, then it's going to display and allow you to do certain things. If you're not the current user, then that's again like how the back-end team will work, where inside my drinks controller, I would put like if current user allow this stuff to happen. Something like that. Or like if current user like is equal to whoever like the params that ID is. You know what I mean? Okay. So again, like back-end logic here, which doesn't necessarily affect anything really in the front end. And so now you're starting to see that separation between the front end and the back end.
So when you're pulling like the API and you're giving them access to like deleting and stuff, like so that's more than that, why would you really want anybody to be able to delete your data or post on your data? That's not actually development.
Remember, this data here, even though it's technically mine, you have to understand that every application has different use cases. So let's just use like Instagram again, or like Twitter. If I wanted to delete a tweet, that tweet doesn't live anywhere that I own. Twitter owns that database. I should be able to send a delete request to delete that tweet that's associated with my account, because that tweet belongs to Adam. And if Adam is the current user, then I should be able to send a delete request.
More like when you're pulling an API, like when you're taking like the books API, Google Books.
Then that would be get only.
But once you get it, you can still like add or whatever or update that. Like
Can
your
you?
own database. Yeah, that's what I was asking. Can you put that in your own database and then update it to show?
You can pull it and then make your own database with it.
But you can't do it.
But if you were to send a delete request to Google Books API, it'll probably say, thanks, but no thanks. I'll handle it from here. Yeah. In the same way like Wiki, right? like Wikipedia,
Yeah.
it'll probably take your request and then it'll be like, all right, cool, I'm going to store it here and then I'm going to validate it. And if it's good, then I'll like slap it on the DOM. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Why would you want to be calling your searching from Reddit?
Oh, this is just an arbitrary example that the idea is that if I wanted my API to be used by other people, then I can share the access to it. So like other origins, right, like matt.com, chuckdownfield.com, if I wanted to create an API that the three of us pull from, then I would create this backend and then give them access to it. But for the most part, for almost all of your apps here, pretty much everything, you'll probably just not allow anyone to use it because you're thinking right now, this is my app, this is my data. But as you start to build more open source stuff, then yeah, like for example, like one of the apps that I built was I tried to build like this recycling app where you could take a picture and then using machine learning AI recognition, it could break down the item into different parts like a bottle. So like the plastic cap on the water bottle is like a different type of plastic than the regular water bottle. But the thing is, I wasn't going to manually input every single recyclable thing in the world. I was open sourced it, so like anyone can upload a photo to it, and then they can like add like what parts of it are recycling, and then what bin you should put it to, based on what color. And then like if you lived in California, there's like 9 different types of recycling. So then you can like hey, which bin should I put this in?
So I need to manage.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, how do you manage that? Like
That becomes way more specific and not a part of this lecture. So let me continue with this, yeah? So, all right, cool. The idea is that I can render JSON. And so if I fetch that data, I get JSON, and you already know how to do that. You've been practicing it with that fake JSON server. But the idea here is that remember, the back end can do anything it wants to do. It's back end logic. So let's continue and just pull this all together. If I'm back in my front end and it's like, click me for data, right? What do we say in terms of like what we need to do? I need an event listener to that button. Do I have access to that button right now? Oh no, how do I get access to this button? Yes, I had an ID, very good. All right, get that data. No, that's wrong. I'm not gonna show you the get the data button. Cool, whatever you wanna call it. So here, I'm just simply gonna go, yo, document dog, yo, hook me up, son. Let me query select. Shit, I messed myself up. All right, get the data button. Very good. Get the data button. Cool.
another dash.
At the end for no reason?
Yeah, for no reason.
This lecture's running a little long. All right, cool. So now I have const data me. Right? Nah, whatever. Data button. Cool. So now on the data button, what do I need to do? All right, add event. When you're starting the app from scratch, it doesn't help you at all. It's not friendly. And what is the event? Cool. And then what do I need to do now? What is this? The callback, right? See, now you're feeling a little more better. Cool. And this receives the event. Oh God. So I can simply console log e.target just to see if it's working. So I'm just going to go here. I'm going to go, my backend is running. I'm going to go to my, I'm going to go to my front end. So bloop, bloop, bloop. So cd into flavortown front end. And I'm just simply going to open up index.html. And all I see is this button that says click me for data. Notice how I have literally 3 minutes to build this website. So it's like very good. But you will have so much more time, right? I don't know, I thought that was funny. So I click it and I get that e.target, right? Cool, what can I do with this? Well, this button is supposed to give me data, right? So how can I do that? How can I get that data? How can I fetch that data? Fetch it, yes. Cool, is it here? Dang it, it's in my other one. Oh, cool, give me that. Give me that, Chris Brown. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Do you guys remember that song? He was like 16 when he made that song. Like, where did I go wrong in life? All right. So the idea here is that if I click this button now, I should be able to make this fetch request to this API, and then it should console log. So if I'm back on my front end, and I click this, okay? Cool story, bro. Let me oh, okay. Oh, whoa, did you see that? How long do those network group tests take? Internal server error. Okay. So my server like bugged out for a second, but look, there they are. Actually, ironically, a perfect example of how network requests can take just a bizarre amount of time. But I want to actually show you like the fact that you're like the full stack developer. Instead of me panicking because I'm in the middle of a lecture, and I was like, what went wrong, and like dove right into the code, I can see if I actually hit those requests by looking at the Rails logs. I could see that, okay, so it definitely bugged out at some point, but there were 3 requests that I clicked. So I can even look at this log here. I can keep this here. And if I click the button, you'll see that I actually made the request on the Rails terminal. So if I look to see, and I get the response back, very good, and it says something like, oh no, there's like a bad error, and something doesn't work in the request, I can simply go, oh no, there's something wrong in the show. Let me debug it. Remember, I'm just hitting the route. I'm just hitting the controller action. So in theory, if I hit this request, I'll get stuck in the by bug. Cool? So it's just like all your Rails power is now being combined with your JavaScript front-end knowledge to be like this full stack developer. Yeah? So you can either dive into the back end and by bug and test it to see what went wrong, or you could drop a debugger on the front end and dive in like, hey, what went wrong with my fetch? What's wrong with my syntax or my JavaScript? And it's always going to be the type of errors that you get. Sweet. So I can just continue, and then now the promise comes back. Cool. You guys want just a quick break? All right, let's take a quick break. So the next thing we kind of want to talk about is the fact that right now you could see this response coming back with ID, purple, fizzy, and then it also sends back the created and updated at, which is like, it makes sense, right? It's sending back all the attributes. But what if we had users in our database and we're just trying to grab user data? In the same way that when I went to Reddit, I grabbed a bunch of this user data. Now, I'm thinking, in my user data, right, what information, what attributes of a user are extremely common? Username, and then password. Even if it's a password hash and it's run through bcrypt, do I want to risk it brisket and send that over to the user, to anyone that's sending a fetch request? No, I want to be able to shape my data. If a user makes a particular request, I want to make sure that, hey, this person only sees this type of data. So I'm going to introduce you to something called Serializer. And that is, I can actually shape the data that I send back. So let's take a look at this documentation. Boop, boop, boop. And let's see how to do it. Add this to your gem file. Pff, say less, Sam. Boop, boop, boop. I'm going to my gem file. And then I'm just going to see that it's not here. I'm just going to drop it in. And so I probably need to, I didn't actually say that, wow, to myself, which is great. And then I start my server again. So let's take a look. Getting started for the nuts and bolts. Wow. Good documentation, bless up. So I can creating a serializer. The easy way to create a serializer is you can generate a new resource and the serializer at the same time. So I can do Rails.g resource and then the serializer, but you can also generate a serializer for an existing model. So I already have a model that exists, and that's not post, but it's drink, right? So instead of post, I'm going to put drink in here. Okay. Wow, look what it did. It made a app under a new folder called Serializers, a file called drink serializer. Okay? Okay. So under app, there's a new folder called Serializers, and it's drink serializer. And all it says is attributes ID. Okay, that's weird. So let's take a look at what that does. Well, if I were to go back, and I simply were to ask it for more data, oh, I'm in the by bug again, whoops. It just sends back ID. So now I'm controlling the shape of that data so that I don't accidentally send every single attribute. Like for the user, I definitely don't want to send the password forward. So what attributes do I want to send over? Well, drink serializer has like a fizzy attribute. That's one's okay. I like that one. So let me also get rid of the by bug in the back end. Okay, that's the other API we built. Oops. V1 drinks controller, this by bug. Gone. If I hit this, it should actually send the request. Okay, it's taking a little bit. All right, come on. Oh. Great. And then it sends that fizzy attribute that I was looking for. Cool. So I can shape the data using a serializer. Are there any questions on like the serializer and how everything is kind of coming together? Yeah?
I have a weird question.
Sure.
Why does it take so long when you're a local host? Isn't it still a local file?
Technically, it's a Rails local server. So my front end is making that asynchronous fetch request, and it's got to route through my local server.
Okay.
And so, yeah. All right, the idea here is that basically is like the whole thing, but let's actually dig a little deeper to see what's happening. If I were to go into my routes, and instead of that, I, for whatever reason, wanted a post to /dranks. I don't know. Dranks? Sure. All right, and that's going to point to a controller that is API/v1/drinks going to a method called custom. So in my API v1 drinks, I need what? I need a custom action. So define custom.
Why did you type API v1?
Oh shoot, you're right. I wasn't ready for that actually. Did you see my reaction? Right. Oh yeah, that's bugging out. Cool. It has to touch? Huh.
They want it.
You're right. Gotta get consent first, right? So the idea is that I can do a post to drinks hitting this custom route. And this custom route does nothing right now, right? There's no, whoops. You saw that? How easy it is to mix it up? No logic here. There's no logic here. But how do I actually hit this by bug? Remember, let's take a look at the routes. I need a post to drinks. So if I were to do this localhost 3000 API v1, what actually is the route? Drinks? Drinks or drinks? Drinks. Drank Z, right? Will this hit it? No, because it's this is a GET request. So I need to tell it the method is actually a post. Cool. Promise pending. And it should hold for a while because guess what I just hit? There's no logic in here. So the idea here is that the back end, if you are separate, front end and back end, then your back end will tell you what route to post to, what method to hit, and then what should happen. And then tell you the example response because I should know, right? If I were to hit this and I'm the drinks controller and I'm the backend person, I can simply render JSON and I can render an object that says message, right? Ha! You got me. Right? I can even, like a fool, put a status, right, of 402 if I wanted to. Huh? Continue. Does nothing. Unexpected end of JSON input. Interesting. Hit this fetch again. Look at this. Internal server error. Oh, I didn't like this? Huh. Just get rid of that. Oh, is it status just 402 as a string? Yeah, I think that's it. Cool. Cool. Oops, it's this fetch. It's going to render this JSON. So now that's what actually got sent to the front end. Whatever you render, that's going to get sent to the front end. And look, 402 payment required. Why did this come through? Well, it's probably because I told it there's a status 402, you didn't pay me. So whatever status you send will actually get sent forward, right? As long as you put the whatever object you get back. So are there any questions as to like how Rails is being just built as a back end, and anything that you request to any route will match whatever the back end sends you? All right. If I were to have a patch to slash drinks hitting this drinks custom, then in my drinks controller, right, in my custom, I'm looking for some params. So let's drop a bybug here and see what actually happens. Ready? The idea is that at some point, I'm going to do like drink.update, not drink.update, like at drink.update, and I'm going to pass in params or something like that to update it. Whatever, right? So what are the params that come through? Well, I don't really need that, but let's actually check. Ready? So if I were to send a method, now it should be a patch. So let's do this. Ready? Bloop. I think you learned a lot of this syntax here. So method is a key value pair. Then there are other important things like headers. And that is an object. And that is another key value pair. So the headers, you have content type. All right? And that's saying that this is the type of data I'm going to send to the server. So I have application slash JSON, loop, comma, and then I'm also going to tell the server, if you send me back a response, I'm going to accept JSON. So I'm going to put accept. This can be in a string or not in a string, doesn't matter, but content type needs to be in a string. So application JSON. So from your web application, your server, your Rails backend, I'm also looking for JSON. It makes sense because guess what the server's trying to give you? The server's trying to give you JSON. So the next thing is going to be mainly this sort of like body. What the body is going to be the payload. What you want to send across as params. So if you just told the server, hey, the content type of what I'm about to send you is JSON, I need to take my regular old JavaScript object and I need to do JSON.stringify. Stringify. And that's a method I invoke on the object. So then I'm going to put in like key of Friday. Let's do this. Friday pointing to or.black. Cool. And then I have another key in here that points to Fox. And what does it say? Who knows? Cool. So far so good. This right here is just a regular old JavaScript object that I'm stringifying because I told the server it's expecting JSON. So if I were to send that, I should hit the custom route, which makes sense because I send a patch to drinks. If I go back to my routes, I have a patch to drinks going to custom. So if I'm at custom and I check the bybug, what do you think my params will be? Let's check. Friday black, Fox, what does it say? So So the body is the payload. It's whatever you send over back to the back end. That's all it is. Cool? So the front end will just receive instructions from the back end. Hit this route, send these key values over, and that way I can use them to now update the database. Now that I have the params, I have a params of Friday, and that points to Rebecca Black. So in my update, I can do, hey, the drink fizzy, for whatever reason, is now params at a key of Friday. So I'm expecting you to send a key of Friday over in the body from your fetch so that the params can come through on Rails. What is it? Oh, it's a Boolean? Yeah, sure. Okay. Very good. Yeah, very good. The idea is that I'm just trying to make a point here.
How would you do that if it's, like, if you want to, you're stringifying, so how would you do it if you want?
Let me explain what stringify is, ready? If I have an object, right, const pizza, and I have real pizza pointing to the hut. Cool? I can see my pizza object. I can do JSON.stringify, and I can pass in pizza. What do you think I will get? Just going to get a stringified object. And this is the JSON. This is this JSON JavaScript object notation. That's just what it looks like, just key value pairs.
The second, if you want, like, you're pulling an integer and pulling
That, yeah, this totally won't work because I'm sending a string inside a Boolean.
So,
Just work with me on the concept.
no, I was just wondering. Okay, we'll talk.
Okay. You have a question?
Hate that signified. Why on the front end you have to parse the JSON data, but on the back end you just grab it.
So the application is expecting the application inside the headers. It goes through the headers before it goes to the body. It will expect this JSON. So Rails will do a lot of auto magic in the params. Like, how is the params hash built? Right? Nobody really knows. It goes through a lot of Rails magic. It will parse it, and then it will put it in the params hash for you. So you don't have to do that. But it does, in fact, do it. Good question. All right, great. It is lunchtime, and that's all I have for you today.